Welcome back to True Story with John Gibson. Today's guest is a man who really requires no introduction at all, but I'll go ahead and give him one anyway. Ryron Gracie.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. Again, completely my pleasure. I appreciate you finding the time to chat with me today and give me and the listeners and all the viewers an opportunity to kind of catch up on what you're doing right now.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Exactly. Let's start right there. So a typical day in the life. I know that you're working a lot, obviously, with Gracie University, but I've heard you're doing quite a bit with law enforcement and training. So, I'd love to learn about that and just see what you're up to.
Yeah. So Gracie University, one thing that, there are many different parts of Gracie University, and one big part is teaching law enforcement. And we've had huge success, especially in the last couple of years. It's really blown up. I was just teaching in Visalia, California, and it's our course. It's called GST, which is Gracie Survival Tactics. It's a week-long course, and we're teaching defensive tactics instructors from, agencies, departments all around the country and even the world. It's a very special course because there's not really anything like it in terms of how not only are the techniques extremely effective, because all of us who do jiu-jitsu know how effective jiu-jitsu is,
right? But
it just makes perfect sense for law enforcement. The non-lethal aspect, the control, the survivability, and it's like pretty much a 30 to 40 hour week of police training. Morning and 6-7 hour days.
Comprehensive.
It's unbelievable. And they're not only are they learning lots of jiu-jitsu techniques, but we're teaching the police officers how to teach so they can go back to the departments and they can teach their fellow officers. So we've had tremendous feedback, and it's a very special course to teach, as are all the courses, even teaching, kids classes, our bully-proof course for kids.
Right.
I don't know what's more fun, teaching, adults that are in everyday group classes here at Gracie University, or teaching, 50 or 60 5- and 6-year-olds, or teaching 60 police officers. It doesn't matter who we're teaching. This the simple fact that we're able to make a life out of sharing jiu-jitsu is a gift.
You touched on two things there that I'm so glad you said. And one thing I love that your brother, your family, but you are so true to the tenet that Graciejujitsu is about self-defense. So what you said right there completely makes sense to me. It's completely relatable to our police officers who have to, hopefully not, but potentially might have to struggle for their life, all the way to children, to anti-bullying and sort of those initiatives. And I also want to pause for a minute and actually just say, and compliment you, because you and your brother have been doing anti-bullying work, Gracie Breakdown, before it was cool. You know what I mean? Before people were talking about it, it was, you guys were 10 years ahead of that. You were doing it for free. And I actually just want to pause and say thank you. I have a 12-year-old daughter, and I share those videos with her sometime. A lot of the real life examples that you break down. So I guess I just wanted to take a minute to acknowledge and just say thank you so much for doing that.
You're welcome. And that's the cool part, is that simply hearing about your daughter and how you share them with her and how you appreciate them, one person appreciating a video makes the video worth it. The fact that there are, tens of thousands that are watching the videos and sharing them and appreciating, that's, unbelievable. And that's the thing, if you look at it like that, like tomorrow we have a class where we're going to introduce a bunch of kids to jiu-jitsu. Let's just say 100 kids. And if one kid says, you know what, I want to do this, and they sign up, not even at our school, at another school, it could be 40 minutes from here, it doesn't matter. But one kid went like this and just changed directions, and now they brought jiu-jitsu into their lives.
Yeah, and it changes their life forever. I mean, it puts them on a path. And I found jiu-jitsu later in life after wrestling and all. And like anybody else I've ever spoke to that's trained in BJJ, we all say, we wish we did it sooner. We wish we did it sooner, because it is life-changing. It's way more than trying to execute a triangle or kimura. The way you learn about your own body and self-control, and it really transcends that mat. And this is something your family gave us, So again, it's a tremendous honor to talk to you. But I want to transition slightly because I want to put some more respect on your name. Because oftentimes you're so laid back and you're calm and measured. And I know you as the professor that I think we tend to forget that you're like a fierce competitor. And just in like getting ready for this conversation, it occurred to me two really, really important things. I'm like, man, I have to bring this up if I ever get the opportunity to talk to this man. And one was you faced Josh Barnett, in my opinion, the scariest, most cerebral heavyweight in MMA history. And I mean that because he competed at the highest, most competitive level for so long, right? So that's a big feat and big undertaking. But moreover, you took on Andre Galvao in the most competitive match one can have, all the way to a draw at the heat, in his prime, when he was on his world championship run. I don't think people acknowledge this enough, and I guess I say all that to say this. Here's the question. Where does the competitive drive for you come from? Because those are two crazy mountains to climb. That's big.
I don't consider myself, I don't know what you said. Did you say a fierce competitor?
I mean, in my word, it's like, let me go for number one.
Well, I don't consider myself like a competitor. I consider myself a curious person, and opportunities to do, jiu-jitsu matches against Andre Galvao and Josh Barnett were just presented to me, and they seemed interesting, and it seemed like something fun to do at the time. So I consider myself a jiu-jitsu instructor. First and foremost, I'm a teacher. I love teaching jiu-jitsu. Now, there have been times in my life where I did think, I want to compete and I want to fight MMA. But my energy, I didn't fully pull myself to do it. And who knows, maybe it's just my personality. It wasn't enough to bring me into that realm. And all the respect to those that are competing MMA and that are competing at a very high level. My competition, I think, was, like I said, it's for my own curiosity, my own growth, and for a great experience. And, there's not too much that you're putting at risk when you're competing in the jiu-jitsu match against somebody. At any point, if you're uncomfortable or you're caught in a submission, you can just tap out and say, I'm done. There's a more at risk when you fight MMA in terms of injury. But even in MMA, there is the ability to at any point say, I'm done, I want to stop.
Sure.
And so back to competing, I think that drive comes from curiosity. My grandfather always said, he always would say things like, almost put himself in a position, even at 80 plus years old, he would say, come over here, let me feel it. Hold me in this position and, try to attack me. So kind of following my grandfather's lead, as well as so many other Gracies, when there's a question or when you're not sure, you're just like, okay, let's get in the position and let's just go. So what a gift that I had these opportunities to roll with these guys that are such high level and feel them. And that's how I feel about, even if we weren't, in a competitive environment, that was Metamoris was the name of the event. But even if someone who's a very high level grappler walks into my building to visit or to, train, I'm very happy to roll with them because I want to experience that which they're so good at, which is jiu-jitsu. And oftentimes they have a specific game that why not experience it for myself firsthand?
What an inspiring mentality. And I wish I were that open-minded and could remove my own ego that well. That's wonderful. And you're right, because you're learning always, right?
Yeah. And that's the thing also is that, you could say that there's a little bit of a risk where if I go and I compete against Josh Barnett, for example, and this happened, 5 years ago, and he caught me in a footlock and I tapped out, you could say, oh, well, he beat Hidon, he made Hidon tap, and therefore Hidon's not good. So there is an ego component of where I don't want to compete because I might lose. And if I lose, you might think less of me. But I think that people are past that and that people look at the bigger picture and they say, forget about whether he wins or loses. And that's how I look at other competitors. I'm not worried about whether they win or lose. I just appreciate them for even stepping up and playing the game and entertaining me. And I learned something from someone if they beat their opponent or if they lose to their opponent. There's always a lesson to be learned. And that's what I'm grateful for. So I'm not too concerned about the 10%, the 20% that might look at me and say, oh, he lost. He's not that good. I look at the 80% that say, wow, look at that. You're exploring. You're having fun. Yes. You're learning. You're teaching us. You're educating us.
Mm-hmm. You know, one thing I've seen over the years, both you and your brother, that I really appreciate, and it's a small detail, and maybe this is something you say intentionally, or maybe you're not even quite aware. But I really, again, as an online student and somebody that's benefited from so many breakdowns, I can't tell you. But you'll say after anytime there's drilling or sparring footage out there, or even after maybe one of your Metamoris matches, I've noticed you guys say to each other, how playful was it? And it's never how hard was it or how difficult or man, you know, it's never that. It's how playful was it? And that attitude and approach, I always found just like awesome. You know, like that's a great teaching mentality. Maybe what is that?
Yeah, the phrase "keep it playful" and have a playful mindset. It's gotten a little bit of heat because it is a fighting world. It's a martial arts world, so there's a little bit of heat around. Don't be playful. Be serious. But that's kind of said in a way of like, there's a bigger picture here. Don't be too hard on yourself, and don't be too hard on yourself is the one. Don't be too hard on yourself, and have fun with this. Yeah, because we're in it for the long run. Mm-hmm. We're not, the outcome of this grappling session right now or this competition match right now doesn't really matter compared to the big picture of just continuing to learn and be around this amazing environment. You talked about how much jiu-jitsu changed lives and it helps people. So the camaraderie and the lessons that are learned and the comfort that is built on the mat and how that comfort rolls over into everyday life. So these are the bigger picture benefits. So you have to have this, I believe that having this very playful approach and mindset allows you, almost like a more lighthearted approach to jiu-jitsu, allows you just to be around it longer, because there's a point where you might have from the age of 22 to 29 years old or 25 to 35, you might have a 10-year window where you can just do and behave however you want. But there's a point in your life, maybe at the mid-range at 40, 45, where you need to look at you're either going to quit or you're going to stay with it. Right. And those who are so attached to having this, always winning in their competition moments, whether it's just competing with a friend in the gym or in a tournament, if you have to always win and you're always so serious about the outcome, there reaches a point in your life where you're like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. Right. And I don't want anybody to feel like, I don't know if I can do this anymore, especially because you're not performing to the level which you once did. Mm-hmm. If that's how you determine whether or not you're going to continue in jiu-jitsu, you're for sure going to stop because everybody's only getting older. Right. So there is a component in me that always wants to protect people that are aging, which means everybody. So I don't care, if you're Andre Galvão, if you're whoever the greatest champions of the world are, there's going to be a day, and it's coming for all of us, where jiu-jitsu looks at you and says, hey, do you want to keep practicing? And when jiu-jitsu says, do you want to keep practicing? It doesn't mean, do you want to keep practicing the way you've been practicing for the last 10 or 15, 20 years? Right. It means, do you want to keep practicing? If so, you need to change the way you define victory. Mm-hmm. And this is why my grandfather, Helio Gracie, was so special, because he was doing jiu-jitsu his whole life. Right. How can you be 80 plus years old on the mat doing jiu-jitsu and having little like competitive sessions where one person is trying to submit him with the choke and he's defending it? So his example shows that, how he practiced jiu-jitsu at 85 was much different than when he was 45 years old.
Right.
But it's very easy to not to think about when you're going to be 65, 75, 85, and only think about right now because you're 24 years old. And this kind of rolls over into how we live our lives in other areas, like in how you eat. People are 22 years old, 21, and they're eating and drinking whatever they want.
Right.
And then one day you hit 46 years old, you're 50, and you say, hold on, I can't eat that anymore. I can't drink that anymore.
Right.
But but you make the change because it's your health and your life is on the line. Whereas with jiu-jitsu, it gets to a point where I can't grapple like that anymore. My shoulder is a little bum. I can't do it anymore. So then you just fade away from jiu-jitsu. And why do you don't have to do that. You can stay involved if, once again, you change your definition of victory. It's
amazing. Wow. I feel like in so many ways, I needed to hear that. So many ways, truly. So it really resonated to me, and I'm going to probably replay it again, I'm sure. But you're right. Things change and evolve, and we have to adapt, you know, and I love that you, I mean, you're a Gracie, but it's amazing you actually experienced seeing your grandfather do that into his 80s and all. I mean, you knew as a young child, hey, that's real. That's reality. That's possible. And that's an amazing inspiration and exposure for you. It's great. Do you take a lot of time to share those things with your kids and try to instill as much of that as you can? Because again, your family's just, who's had a bigger impact in martial arts? I can't imagine another family.
Yeah. Do you mean like share with my kids this idea that, you know, there are phases in life?
Well, honestly, I just meant more specific, just the jiu-jitsu sort of anecdotes, but yeah, sure.
Yeah, my kids are young right now. They're 7 and 9 years old next month. So for me right now, it's just about playing jiu-jitsu with them, and they love doing it. They love going to class with me, especially if I'm in the room with them and I'm around.
Cool.
So I'm not worried too much about anything beyond just building extreme comfort with the closeness, because you know how it is. There are kids that are comfortable being grabbed and held and grappled by another kid, and there are kids that have no idea as to how to, you know, physically engage with someone else. And I think that's a big part of preparing kids in terms of self-defense, is that there's a comfort being pushed and being grabbed, and you don't just crumble when somebody puts their hands on you. So that's my focus right now. But no doubt, all the lessons are coming for them.
Yeah, I can only imagine. You know, I used to think prior to this conversation, what a tremendous responsibility it would be for you, your cousins, all of you, to have that last name. But honestly, it must also be such a blessing in so many ways too, you know, to have such an understanding of your family and such an impact. And it must be a unique life only you guys would know and share.
Yeah, very unique life. And I'm sure that there are some people that do feel a certain stress, and more than others. So there is no doubt that earlier in life, younger, I felt maybe a little more stressed to be enough and do the right thing and make sure that I make all my elders happy. But as I get older myself, it's almost like I'm automatically just existing. I'm enough, I'm enough where I am and with who I am. And the blessing is the everyday, whether it's students in person, students online, students at certified training centers around the world, teaching police courses around the country, people in the street who walk by and say hello. Or I met some people the other day in Northern California, and they said, hey, I started jiu-jitsu because of you guys. I saw some videos, you know, 8-9 years ago, and the guy's a brown belt. And I met a couple people who have started in the last couple of weeks that started because of us, but they don't even train at our school. They train at another random school somewhere, but still it was almost like they were very happy to meet me. Like, wow.
Of course. Yes. You inspire so many. Yes.
You turned us on to it. And that's the thing about Gracie University, the online curriculum. You know, so many people exist around the world. They don't have access to jiu-jitsu schools.
Right.
But they get started online learning this linear curriculum, and they're going through the path. And online learning has a little bit of like a negative rap. Can't learn on the computer, but they do it. They find 2 or 3 friends to start learning. And then maybe 2 years later, a school opens in their city and they go sign up. But the fact that they signed up had so much to do with the fact that they built some comfort and some understanding with 3 friends in the garage for the past 2 years.
Right.
So Gracie University is creating jiu-jitsu students, not simply for Gracie University, but for the world and for all jiu-jitsu instructors. And that's what I saw this last weekend in Visalia, California. It was very cool.
You know, and again, seriously, you guys, he did not pay me to say this. I feel like I'm so complimentary. I'm gushing, but sincerely here, you were so ahead of the curve. You were so ahead of the curve. And it occurred to me, probably over a year ago, mid-pandemic, when I didn't have access to my academy, and I go, Gracie University. I had seen the videos. You had been giving content away for free for years, giving away jiu-jitsu for years. Just like the example you gave, the guy that you met in the street, you know, he saw that. You guys are charismatic. You inspired. You go, okay, wow, that made sense the way he explained it. And then ultimately they made the step to try it. But, you know, years ago, like you said, people sort of thought online training in like a negative, pejorative way, but the whole world has changed. All of our kids had to adapt to online classes. Again, for jiu-jitsu, I had to adapt. Every sort of fitness class adapted. You were years ahead of the curve there, and your curriculum didn't suffer, which is, it's really a testament to you guys.
Yeah, I guess there's something to be said about maybe the martial arts kind of stays traditional. It's hard for the martial arts to change because, you know, think about the Grand Master gets so much respect. So how things were done 40, 50, 60 years ago, in many ways is still like respected. Like you don't do things online. So think about how it's going to be 20, 30 years from now.
Right.
There will be nobody who's successful who doesn't have an online course.
Right.
And is not giving things away and teaching things. And, you know, I remember my uncle Hickson saying to me, like, you know, I don't want to teach someone jiu-jitsu unless I look them in the eye and I can be there with them. And that makes perfect sense. Why would you want to give these deadly skills, potentially deadly skills out to just anybody?
Sure.
But then you go back to what my father talked about a long time ago, and my father was, you know, a great influence in our way of looking at this, which is when the UFC first started and he created this first VHS set. The question is, I don't want to put this information out there because somebody could get it and use it against us. But he had to kind of put that to the side and say, well, that is one thought. But what about the thousands and thousands of people who could get this information now through these VHS, this VHS collection, and it can actually help save their lives and protect them, and they can learn to defend themselves against a potential attacker. So you always have to balance it on this scale. And, you know, Hickson himself is somebody who's done so much for jiu-jitsu and said, I want to look him in the eye. And even right now, sitting here right now, if I think about it for 5 minutes or, you know, a minute, I can make myself think that you're right. We shouldn't give it to anybody.
You talk yourself into it.
I believe that right now.
Yeah.
But then I stop and I say, hold on. But what about John?
Right.
What about the people? So there's no wrong answer.
You don't ever question it again. I promise. If anything, first of all, your curriculum is amazing, but the Gracie breakdowns, for example, just people getting violently attacked or police officers trying to subdue somebody and it not going so well for them, and you being able to stop, frame, explain step by step. These are like, again, that's something I share with my daughter. When I see someone getting bullied in a high school and I say, hey, baby, just sweetheart, I want you to check this out. And if she just gains awareness of distance, and she can just have awareness of keeping herself away from a potential threat, you and I, man, we won. We won, you know? So you're giving the world that. And it's a huge gift to all of us. Huge gift.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that amazing feedback. And, you know, all respect to anybody who said, I don't think online is not the thing. And then they later went online.
Right.
And now they're offering online stuff. I don't see that as like, how could you? I see that, oh, okay. You know, you understand that online is the way that we're going.
Right.
And that there's more good to come from offering online content than there is bad.
Yes, absolutely. Well, again, I want to be completely respectful of your time. Is there anything, maybe just final words you'd like to leave for everybody or share?
Yeah, I guess you talked about the amazing benefits of jiu-jitsu, but not every one of your listeners does jiu-jitsu.
It's true.
So it's kind of a weird thing to say jiu-jitsu is so life-changing and it's so amazing. And because people who don't do jiu-jitsu, they're like, that sometimes goes in one ear, out the other. And it's almost like even asking you, like, what do you think is necessary for someone to experience the life-changing benefits of jiu-jitsu? Is it simply doing a class, right? Like, how would someone get started in jiu-jitsu if they want to experience these life-changing benefits that you're talking about? And so just the idea of like finding a jiu-jitsu school and trying jiu-jitsu and looking for a school that has a beginner program that offers classes, entry-level classes. Right. That's something that if anybody's thinking about doing jiu-jitsu, look for a school that does that. If they have one class that mixes white belts to brown belts to blue belts to black belts, it might not be the place for you to really understand and catch on to the art and take the full and, rip the full benefits. So just my advice to any listener who wants to maybe try it out, number one, find a school that offers beginner level, entry level classes and watch the class first and see the lessons that are being taught. And it's not too much about competition, but it's more about learning the basic movements of jiu-jitsu. And if you don't have a school in your area, you can go online and you can learn online. Even though so many said you couldn't years ago, today we all know you can learn so much online.
Yes.
Now, does it help to have a friend or two, a neighbor, a nephew, have a few people that you can practice with? Absolutely. And you go through the steps, and the most basic of most basic techniques is taught first. And then we build on that. And then we keep building and building and building. And all this is on our website, graciejuniversity.com. You can go, a few lessons are free there. And then you can experience what John is talking about and how jiu-jitsu can do so much to enhance and, add to your life.
Absolutely. Thank you again. Huge honor. This was a bucket list discussion for me. Honestly, I really appreciate it. Thank you again. I will definitely include all of your contact information for Gracie University so people can reach out and links. And, again, with that, this is True Story with John Gibson, today's guest here on Gracie.
Thank you so much.